In a world that longs for the nostalgic, especially in the MMORPG genre, we have a particular game that not only is making strides to capture that nostalgia, but to also deliver something new. It's not just a game in production, but it's also a game that you can already play through various sources. So what is Project Gorgon? Well, Project Gorgon is a game that looks to capture the spirit of the classic MMORPG. In a world that is filled with modern MMO clones, this is a game that strives to do something different. In 2014, a Kickstarter was started by Eric Heimberg as him and his wife Sandra Powers looked to create a game that they were not able to develop by working for Turbine, as they worked for games like Asheron's Call 2, Star Trek Online, and they took that experience that they had and decided that they wanted a particular game to create on their own. Now, after several iterations and many different projects, and these projects were chronicalized by projects A through F, after finally coming to Project Frontier, the team was equipped to create a game that, like many of these other games that exist, would have been a modern MMO clone. But as Eric said himself on the Massively OP podcast, they decided to move in a different direction and create the game that they always wanted to play. So what did Eric and Sandra aim to create when they set out to create their new game? Well, one of the things that they're definitely looking for in a game is to take some of their experiences that they've had, especially with playing MMOs and creating, and to make something that really captured what it felt like to play those old school MMOs, but in a modern environment. So what does that mean? Well, in today's modern environment, we see games that are often referred to as theme park MMORPGs. In a sense, it's a roller coaster where you are led from one theme to one theme in different areas, typically a quest hub. And that is not something that we see in Project Gorgon. When you first load into Project Gorgon, you're going to load into an island with very little direction on what to do. And a lot of people will refer to this as a sandbox style MMORPG, not to be confused with your sandbox style games like Rust, Ark, etc. But in a sandbox MMORPG, you have that same MMO element where you start as something small and you grow. And during this process in a sandbox MMORPG, you can basically do anything. And that is one of the things that Project Gorgon offers at its core. Being Asheron's Call developers and community leads, Eric and Sandra were able to create something that is very akin to the old school system of skill-based MMORPGs. So what is a skill-based MMORPG? Well, Project Gorgon as a skill-based MMORPG has lots of unique features which we'll leave for you guys to discover, but some of the base things that you can expect are combat skill lines as well as trade skill lines. And if any of you guys have ever played Asheron's Call, you know that the trade skill system was extremely unique and very in-depth, and that is something you will also find here in Project Gorgon. So the objective is to get out there, to explore the world, to see the sights, to level up your different skills, and ultimately get out there and explore. So what are some of the other things that they were looking for? Well, I think one of the most important things here is community. Eric has mentioned in several interviews that not only will the world be small, but it will have a sort of cap, if you will, to avoid any type of instancing, so you're guaranteed to run into your fellow players. And from playing Project Gorgon for the last month, I can tell you that the game very much encourages interaction with your fellow players, and you will run into them all the time. While it is a relatively small world at this time, and they do grow, The system in itself at its core encourages you to get out there and interact with your fellow players. You're going to visit a bunch of different zones. You're going to be around people all the time. You're always going to be going back to those lower level zones once you reach higher combat skill levels, because you're going to need something for quests, for favor, or to level up your trade skills. So in creating this world, it was originally marketed on a Kickstarter campaign that easily achieved its goal and quickly met its stretch goals of $75,000. Now you may be asking, that's not really enough for an MMORPG, is it? And I don't think that was really what was intended with the Kickstarter project. It was more of along the lines of a complete smaller MMORPG. Because like I said, they weren't aiming to create the new World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy XIV. Eric and Sandra were looking to create a game that was feature-rich and catered to a deep sense of community. Now, shortly after the game became available, after the Kickstarter and Indiegogo campaigns, the game became available in 2018 on the Steam platform, where they saw a huge increase of player base. Now, Project Gorgon has received fairly good ratings on Steam itself, and many people consider it to be a very enjoyable game. This is one of those games that again encourages the community interaction and encourages you to get out there and explore the world. It encourages you to go out there and be what you want your character to be, whether you do it from a roleplay sense or to do it just simply as a completionist or whatever your motivation is. Project Gorgon is one of those games that attempts to capture everything we loved in a classic MMORPG and intends to bring a graphically updated universe in which you get to explore the world of Alhearth and be anything that you want to be in your character, to interact with an amazing community, and to go out there and create your own adventure.